Moving on to our second to last game we're going to fully dive into. It is going to be the Washington Commanders at the Atlanta Falcons. Commanders are 2.5-point favorites. The over-under is 45.5. Money line sits at minus 140 for the Commanders. Plus 120 for Atlanta. Now, as we record, Jayden Daniels is still, again, that's kind of the hard part when we do record on Wednesday. Not just the line movement, but also everyone's kind of questionable. It's very rare people get ruled out this early in the week. But I'm going to do what I did last week, and I'm going to assume that Jayden Daniels is going to play because that's what it seems like is most likely, even though plenty of people that can say, oh, maybe they don't need to after putting up 41 last week with Mariota out there. But anyways, so I'm going to assume that Jayden Daniels is going to play and will be healthy enough in this. I like Washington to cover in this one. Major question marks coming out of Atlanta. Michael Penix has, I think the first 2 weeks we said, all right, maybe a little bit of a sophomore slump, if you even want to call it that, because he got such a late start. And then last week happened, and it seemed to just fully fall apart. And Kirk Cousins having to come in and Raheem Morris coming out and saying, look, Michael Penix is still our starter. That's never fun when the coach has to come out and explicitly say that. I think there's big time panic in Atlanta. It's unfortunate because Bijan Robinson is one of my favorite players to watch play football. And if they're not playing well, he's not going to be emphasized enough. That's frustrating. I like Washington here. I think their defense has been much improved from last year. We did have a comment last week, saying, hey, y'all are kind of underestimating the Commanders' defense. And, I said, all right, we'll prove it. And sure enough, they did. But this will be a little bit of a different test. We'll see if Michael Penix, if last week was just an exception rather than the rule. But for this sake of it, I'm going to take Washington minus 2.5. I could see a late field goal getting the win on the road. I am going to go over here, though. I do think we are going to see some points again, kind of tongue in cheek what I said about Michael Penix. I think he's better than what he's shown, but he's a gunslinger, folks. That's something he did at Washington. He's got an incredible arm. A lot of the throws are going to look really good, but you're also going to have some that look really bad. And unfortunately, it seemed like he just got all of his bad ones out last week. So I do think we're going to see some points being scored, but will it be enough against what I think is really one of the better offenses in the league in Washington? Raider Jim, your thoughts, Commanders at Falcons.
I have this sense of humor that have little cartoons in my head all the time. And I just imagine coach walking up to Kirk Cousins last week saying, get your helmet, you're going in. And then Kirk Cousins looking at him going, really? You're kidding me, right? No, I'm not going in. You didn't want me in there. But he's a professional. He went out and he did his thing. I think Penix has 22 minutes and 30 seconds this week to either make a difference or to show that he's going to turn around his game. Otherwise, they're going to sit him again. And if that happens, then you get the whole locker room in a dither and everybody's it's going to be a bad look. So Washington defense is going to be I think they are pretty much 100%. They do have Percy Butler out, safety. He injured his hip against the Raiders, and they do have some offensive injuries. Terry McLaurin, the wide receiver, he's not going to play. John Bates, the tight end, still hurting from Green Bay. He's not going to play. And then now they say their running back, Krusty Merritt, he's got a new knee injury, so he may not be able to play. Daniels is going to be in. But those other guys, you start losing weapons one by one by one. But I don't think that's going to matter to Washington. I think the defense keeps them in the game. I think they get after. Also at minus 2.5, that's a fine number for me. Over under 45.5. Oh, only because I think they are going to get at the quarterback. just don't know if Washington, because of the few injuries they have on the offensive side of the ball, if they're going to blow it up. So give me a full point, give me under 46.5, Washington minus 2.5. And that's how this one's going to go.
Yeah. I think this is a big opportunity. Absolute nightmare scenario, as you mentioned. If Michael Penix goes out in the first half and we go to half, it's 13-17 Washington. Michael Penix has multiple interceptions. I mean, Raheem Mostert, he doesn't have hair, I don't believe, but he would be pulling it out if he did, because again, he does not want to have to go to Kirk Cousins again, because the first question that he will be asked will be, who's your starting quarterback? And that is the last question that he wants to have to answer. So nobody's pulling for Michael Penix harder, I think, than Raheem Morris going forward. Final game that we're going to dive into fully. Didn't have a whole lot of leeway, unfortunately, this week. Obviously, we focus on the AFC West and NFC East. No real intra-division matchups that allow other games to get some shine, but this is one that I think is going to be one of the more intriguing, definite measuring stick for the Indianapolis Colts as they head to Los Angeles to face the Rams. The Rams are going to be 4-point favorites. The over-under is 49.5. Indy is plus 165 on the money line. The Rams minus 195 at home. Raider Jim, your thoughts? Colts at Rams at SoFi.
Is it too early to start chanting MVP when we talk about Daniel?
Mm-mm.
You hear this in sports sometimes. He's making a believer out of the fans over there in Indianapolis, and you got to hand it to the guy. He's playing pretty good ball. He's going to be without one of his targets this week. It sounds like Alec Pierce may be out. Doesn't matter. They're going to make up for it. Hardest game they lost to the Eagles. -4. That's probably one of the best lines you and I have seen over the last couple of weeks. I really like the way that they handicapped this one. The defense is going to have, or the Colt defense is going to have their work. Good game. If by some chance Indy not only covers, but if they can come out and get a victory on the road in LA like that, wow, that would be one of the stories of the week as far as I'm concerned. But I think the Rams are going to have enough offense and defense to duplicate a lot of what they did against the Eagles. Difference is going to be they're going to be able to hold it this weekend at home. Give me the Rams -3.5. Over 48.5 in this one.
Yeah, I've been a little late believer in the Daniel Jones experiment. And to answer your question, Raider Jim, I believe, yes, it is a little too early to start chanting MVP at Daniel Jones. But this is look, if he goes out, he goes on the road and he balls out against a playoff team and a true contender in the NFC, then I will officially start to, it's like you sit down and it's like, okay, I'm prepared to hear arguments. Right now, I'm not even stepping into that room. But I think Daniel Jones could possibly bring me into that room if he performs well this weekend. I do like the Colts to cover here. I think the Rams are going to win this game. But again, I think the Colts defense is good enough to keep this game close. I think it's going to end up being, a late field goal from Josh Carty, even though I know they'll probably be having nightmares if that does come down to it. Another last-second field goal, that will not be fun for Rams fans. But I do think the Colts can cover, so I'm going to buy that 0.5 point just to be safe. Give me Indy +4.5. The under 49.5. In order for Indy to cover or even win this game, it's got to be a muddy kind of rock fight. And if it turns into a shootout, very good chance that the Rams do cover and maybe blow some, could be 41-31. Everyone feels good. It's 24-24 at halftime. And I think Daniel Jones realizes, I might be in deep water right now trying to outduel Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua. But I do like Indy's weapons, even without Alec Pierce. Tyler Warren, who's a stud at Penn State, is looking like a stud here. And Michael Pittman is one of the more, I think he's got to be one of the most underrated wide receivers in football. We do not talk about him as much as we should. And ironically, I think he's perfectly fine with that, which is odd for a wide receiver. So I do like Indy here to cover, but not win, but under 49.5.